Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. We are still your only horror podcast that talks about films with 10 or fewer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe somebody else has tried in the 5 years that we've been doing this and realized it's a shit business model and abandoned it. So, as far as we know, we're still the only ones out here if we're making it happen. As a reminder, if you don't know what Certified Forgotten is, our philosophy is that some films are certified fresh, some films are certified rotten, our films are certified forgotten. And that means we get to talk about a lot of cool stuff that a lot of people haven't seen. A lot of festival movies, a lot of unearthed or forgotten, or in Donato, today's film in particular, I don't know where to categorize this, and I know we'll get to it, but sometimes you're like, these films have been percolating in the background for a little bit. This is a weird one. I'm excited for today's conversation.
Yes, I too am very excited. I watched our movie with my roommate, and she looked at me after it was over and was like, "What the fuck?"
It is. I think I compared it to licorice pizza. So it's where there's a whole vibe going on here a little bit. It's an age thing. We'll get to it. Donato, I can hear our guests. I can hear our guests laughing in the background. I think we got to go jump right to introductions.
Absolutely. I'm not going to waste any more time. The brilliant filmmakers who brought The Pit as today's selection, you know them most recently from the VHS Halloween anthology with their segment Home Haunt, and that is Micheline Pitt-Norman and R.H. Norman. Thank you both for being here, bringing us The Pit, and let's chat about you first though. Let's make it about you.
Well, thanks for having us, guys. We're really excited to be here because we haven't got to discuss like a movie on any of the press we've done, and it's pretty wild. And this is the one that we're doing.
Yeah.
But we're a husband and wife team that write and direct our films and projects together, and this year is our 10-year anniversary
as a couple.
As a couple.
Well, congratulations. I feel like celebrating it with a feature in one of the most anticipated horror sequels of the year. That feels like a pretty good anniversary gift to yourself, yeah?
Oh yeah, no, it's been amazing. We've been really excited about the release. VHS is just a roller coaster. The whole process, it eats up a whole year. You start in January, and then a whole lot of development time goes into it, and then you shoot in June or July, and then it's released by September. It's crazy. It's just the whole year has just been a blur because of VHS. We can't even remember anything else. It's been nuts.
We finished on July 16th, and they're like, okay, it's coming out October 3rd, and we're like, okay.
Yeah.
Justin Martinez is the real MVP for
that's our VFX artist.
Yeah.
He basically helped us all throw it together real quick. But yeah, the whole production timeline is very truncated and very compressed, and it's a sprint. It feels also like a marathon, and we're just happy it's out in the world, and we're just enjoying all the different reactions to it.
Yeah, I really love the Halloween theme of this VHS. I like the Shudder's been doing such a good job taking over VHS and giving it these sci-fi themes and a through line for the filmmakers to follow. But I heard VHS Halloween and my first thought was like, oh man, like Radio Silence, they've got the market cornered on VHS Halloween segments. Like, did you go in going like, no, we got to one up Radio Silence. We got to make this our.
I don't think anyone goes in, at least we don't go in trying to compare ourselves to someone else or try to be better than them. It's more like, this is the standard of expectation with VHS. You look at all your favorite segments and you set those as standards to try to be somewhere as good as them is always just a goal. I think for anybody that does this is because it's such big shoes to fill. There's so many incredible filmmakers that have come out of the VHS world. And this is such a big opportunity for directors and writers to contribute to an established franchise and also get to establish who they are as filmmakers and storytellers.
Yeah, it's definitely daunting to kind of have this whole lineage of all these incredible directors like Radio Silence, like you mentioned, and our buddy David Bruckner, and there's Scott Derrickson, and there's all these different people.
Ty West,
Adam Wingard. And just a ton of really established, well-known filmmakers who've all done really great work. So, there's the longer this goes on, the more expectation there is. Next year we'll have higher expectations than this year, and this year had higher expectations than last. And just they're collecting all these great filmmakers who do this work. It's interesting though. You did mention the Radio Silence one. That's the one we've gotten the most comparisons to. Is the 10/31/98, and ours is 10/31/88. That's the year. So it's literally almost like a prequel. We didn't really expect that, and it's not something we planned, but definitely 10/31/98 is one of my favorite entries into it. And what I liked about that one in particular is, I mean, Radio Silent or Silence are also, you know, genius filmmakers, but they just really understood what it's like to capture like a roller coaster ride of this thing, and just like this constant, you know, stream of consciousness going through this, and just around every corner there's something, you know, new and crazy to see. And it just doesn't really, you know, it doesn't limit itself with the found footage thing. It's like they kind of like took it and they're like, how can we make this feel like a movie, you know, while not violating the POV, and just giving you some kind of like really thoughtfully staged experience as you're kind of going through a, you know, a haunt. And that's kind of what we did. And so we weren't like actively thinking about theirs, but, you know, we kind of landed somewhere similar.
Yeah, I mean, complimentary, like that was my first thought when I watched Home Haunt. I was just like, this is a spiritual successor to Radio Silence's segment. And again, totally complimentary because it is also one of my favorite segments to date.
Anytime you could say Radio Silence's name and our name in the same sentence is a compliment. Like, we're huge fans of everything they do.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about order, since we're talking about the VHS Halloween. We've been lucky enough on the show to talk to Jordan Downey and Kate Siegel about their experiences in VHS. They really emphasize creative freedom as filmmakers, being able to come in with some ideas and basically, you know, kind of the producers getting out of the way and being like, let's do it. But they also had strong opinions about how they felt they should fit in, or where their film should fit in kind of the sequence of shorts within that feature. So you guys obviously have kind of the important final position there. Was that something that was important to you? Was that something that was decided for you? How'd that work?
I don't think, I mean, at least for us, we don't go in thinking like where we want to go. I think for us, it was just about telling the story we wanted to tell and how like a bombastic ending. We knew we wanted to be the first people to do stop motion in VHS. So that end sequence is stop motion, and Calder Greenwood, that is our production designer, did that, and he's amazing. And I think that is what sold everybody on putting us at the end, because they've never done that before. It was an unexpected ending shot and sequence, especially after that crazy witch stuff. So I felt like they thought it was the way to hit in this installment. And I think it's a huge compliment for us to like be in that position, because we weren't expecting it.
A lot of pressure too, but
and it definitely was like really fun to find out that we were going to be like the last thing that people got to see before like the incredible end credits, which I think are probably the best in the franchise.
Yeah, there's something interesting about this too, though. In this particular installment, everyone has strong opinions. Like, our first instinct is like, well, we'd like to go, you know, first, because it just felt like it was quick and kind of go into it. And so that's kind of where we thought we were going to end up, just, you know, kind of just thinking about it. But the interesting thing about this VHS is that this is the only time where all the different segments came in and the producers were all unanimous immediately on the order. They didn't have to think about it. Normally they spend hours and hours like playing them in different sequences. It's like a set list for a concert. You know, you have to figure out what's going to pick you back up in the middle, what's the best opener, what's the best closer. And so, you know, they really curate it like a set list. And the producers said this is the first time that everyone got all of them together. And they're like, no, this all has to go there. And kind of the sequencing with ours and Kid Print, I think, was like one of the ones that had the most thoughtful, because like, you know, we kind of made jokes about it. Ours is like the Kid Print's a thesis on child killing, and ours is the antithesis. And it's like you needed those two things to kind of like front load each other.
I think we complement each other really well, because Alex's is so rooted in reality and it's so grounded, like it could feel like it really could happen. And I think that's what makes it so scary. And ours is so like bombastic and fantastical and like crazy that they really play off of each other really well. And I think people really enjoy the duality of our two segments together. And I also think the wraparound in this installment is fantastic. I really like it. I'm a huge fan of the stuff in Halloween 3. So like I love the wrap, and I think it honestly makes the installment flow so beautifully.
Yeah, I think, you know, the wraparounds are always so interesting to me, because in anthology, like, it's hard to be the connective tissue. It's hard to be the person that has to tie everything. And I think, oh man, just the haunted soda element, the poltergeist soda is just, it's funny, but it still is the right tissue between everything that's going on here. And, you know, again, complimentary, you guys end VHS Halloween on such a high note. And I think it is really complimentary to also Coochie Coochie Coo, which leads things off.
Yes.
Because what you have with VHS Halloween is these like two haunted segments that bring you in with high energy and bring you out with high energy. Mm-hmm. So it's really not surprising to hear that Goldblum and the team were like, no, this is exactly the order, and there was no fighting on it, because that is everything that y'all have done. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the song, the choice of making it about a haunted musical element here, because like I feel like we don't get enough of that, so I was so happy to see that.
Well, that one was specifically for like the cursed sounds of Halloween. Like those are a specific thing. It's like, we've seen some people don't get it, and they're like, oh well, it's just like the Evil Dead. It's like, no, there was like a big market back in the day for like
it's
Halloween
the 50s
records.
and 60s.
It's like the 50s and 60s thing. Ones. And it's like, if you're going to bring a home haunt to life, that actually makes sense. It wasn't arbitrary. It wasn't just like, oh, it's a cursed vinyl record. No, it was one of those 50s and 60s records that everyone used to buy and they used to play at their Halloween parties.
Great original artwork on them. And we had Eric Powell from the Goon do our artwork for our record. And we know we wanted like original art, and we love working with artists. We're artists ourselves. But the other thing, it's also a little nod to the Gate. And I'm a huge Gate fan. Yeah. And I love gateway horror. I think it's so important, and it doesn't really exist anymore. So that was a little bit of nod to that. Well, also, as you mentioned, the vintage records, which I have a collection of all of them in frames in my office. Not this one, but my other office. And we knew immediately, like, that's such a great way in of doing something.
And home haunt is gateway horror for adults. Like that's kind of what it is. I've never seen that done before in any genre, so it's interesting. But the other thing about the record is that we also knew that it was an opportunity to use music, because in found footage, the hardest thing, and I hear very rarely this get brought up, horror movies really rely on music. And if you're one of the things that we really stressed ourselves with in terms of VHS was we wanted it to be a really authentic found footage film, meaning that everything's edited in camera, right? If Keith or Zach are turning off the camera, those are the cuts. I'd say we got about 95% there. There's always producer notes and you trimmed something there. But if you watch it, it feels like it's just a sequence of events start and stop from the camera from when they start to where they end. And that doesn't allow for a score, right? The music has to be diegetic, and we knew we wanted some music. So whenever you hear music in ours, there's three spots. The first is when they're watching the home movie. Keith scored it with some kind of campy thing. Then the record plays. And then also he has playing music outside of the maze, which is like typical like spooky music. But we wanted to work with Joe Bashara, who's a really good friend of ours, and the John Williams of horror, essentially. And so he did the song for us, and we thought that was a cool way to add music to this sequence.
Yeah, we just kind of let him do what he wanted to do.
Yeah,
he just kind of let Joe do his thing, and I think he made something kind of like eerie, and it's supposed to be a spell. Like, I mean, that's what really the record is. So it had to feel like an incantation.
Yeah.
So that's something he really kind of captured.
Yeah, you're speaking my Latin language, and like, apologies, Monocle, I'm doing a lot of heavy lifting on this, but as both the horror anthology lover and the found footage lover, so many times people neglect what you're talking about. The idea of this has to feel organic and authentic,
right?
And yet we're gonna put a score in, and it's like, well, who edited the score into this footage that I'm watching in like movie terms? So it's like,
what's interesting about that is that the question people always talk about is camera motivation, and it's always a big conversation with whatever. The real question is, who the hell is editing this? Like, it's not about the camera motivation. I've seen people film the most horrible things that you shouldn't be filming today. Now that we have cell phones, we know that if something's horrible's happening, there's every asshole in the room is going to have a camera on it,
Correct.
But who's editing this stuff? And we didn't want there to be a magical editor. We wanted it all to be Keith and Zach just turning on the camera and turning it off.
It's like the Cloverfield effect of, I know Cloverfield was not the first found footage movie, right, but like they popularized the line of like, just keep filming. You just have to keep. And it's like, why though? That's not good enough motivation for an entire movie. Like you just said, why am I recording these life or death scenarios where I should probably put the camera down and run away?
Right.
Yeah. And Keith's recording so for his insurance adjuster, and also so the whole town doesn't think he just murdered all these people.
Yeah, that was actually, it's funny because we keep hearing people that like that. I don't like that. I don't like drawing attention to it. So the whole sequence in Stone Hallway was kind of, that was one where the dialogue was very like discussed a lot. Like, what are they going to do in this one moment where you have things broken down? And like, I'll say the producers were kind of right here, because I didn't want to acknowledge when we were writing together. I was like, I don't really want to acknowledge the camera thing because we've seen 90 of these things and it's always there. And they're like, no, give a good reason. And now afterwards, we've had multiple people come up and they're like, we love that they say that they have to keep filming because everyone will blame them. Like this.
And he hates it so much when he had to do it, but now everybody loves it.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, I kind of got proven wrong by people there, but I was like, no, I want them to be arguing about who's,
But it makes sense when you really look at it in the story and like the family relationship. That conversation feels authentic, and I think like when you're doing it, you're like, God, this feels so stupid, and why is this happening? And then you watch it all together, and then everyone connects to it, and they're like, oh my God, finally someone gave a reason to have the camera on, and it makes sense, and we agree, and I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was,
even though it was not something we were planning on doing.
Yeah, the whole back half of the maze is really interesting, just in terms of our writing, because like one of the things we wanted to do with VHS Halloween that was different is we have the only like Amblin style family in the whole series. We knew we wanted like a Clark Griswold type dad and the kid who doesn't want to, and the mom who ends up being a badass.
The mom's totally from Gremlins.
Yeah, mom's from Gremlins. And so like, everything we wanted to do was like a little bit different than what's been done before. Like we love seeing the obnoxious college kids show up and go woo in the camera and get killed. That's like a staple, but we wanted to do something a little bit, different. And what became tricky with that was how do you pay that off? Because we experimented a lot when we were filming, and we found that if you stopped everything and had them all like resolve the relationship in the middle of the maze, it didn't work at all. Like it was just not really working. And so we did subtle things like the way to keep the momentum up. So if you watch the family as it's progressing, Zach starts to call his dad again, and they're kind of like getting through it. So we wanted like people, a lot of people are like, well, we wanted more resolution from the family. You actually didn't when you cut it together. It didn't work. It was like you wanted them to get through this maze and like be fighting for their lives and to get out. So we try to find smaller things that they could do towards each other, relying on each other, doing these things where you start to see their kind of relationship getting a little closer. And the key one is he calls his Keith dad a few times, and people haven't really picked up on that, but we wanted small subtle ways to like end that relationship on a note without like detracting from the kind of the kinetic energy.
Yeah, and how hard is it to do that though in a short format? Because like you're not working with an entire feature where you can develop a character dynamics like you're talking about over a period of time. So like what is the mentality when you approach a smaller film in running time and having to like do breakneck character development?
Well, I think if you see our first short we did together, Grummy, that's 10 minutes, and we get a lot of character, a lot of emotion, a lot of story and feeling in those 10 minutes. And that's just something that we have, I feel like, in our DNA as filmmakers, is to always have that connective tissue to the characters. No matter what story we're telling, no matter what we're doing, we also tend to put elements together that never should work together. Like putting something that's fantastical and like fairy tale adjacent and Halloween with Home Hunt, and also putting it into like a really grounded like family dynamic, and then bombastic crazy violence and like comedy almost in that way. And you're like, you can't really do this, and then we find a way. The same thing we do with Grummy. So I think that the biggest thing that we know as filmmakers is like no one's gonna watch your story or your film or your short or whatever it is if they don't care about the characters. So you have to find a moment and a place for people to care about those characters, and we always find that in anything we do. And we know that it's just as important as the horror and as the creatures, as the scares, as the world building. Like the characters are step one.
Yeah, and you have very limited real estate to get people to care about. We actually were worried. We thought, because we've seen every VHS and we're a big fan of the franchise, and most of them don't have a lot of character development, and sometimes that's a good thing. Like it's like a lot of people are, yeah, we want more characters. Sometimes you don't. Like sometimes for the structure of the story, it works better for them to be a little bit lighter on that. And we were a little worried that the producers were going to want to axe a lot of the first act because there's a lot of that, and they loved it. They didn't. So it was like, that was very a happy thing for us to have happen.
Yeah. It's like, trying to make a Pixar movie from Halloween Hell. You know what I mean? Like you care about what happens immediately, and you get pulled in, and then you're like, what the, fuck is going on? I don't know if can I even say fuck?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You
Okay.
can, yeah, you're good.
We wanted that Toy Story moment where the kid stops playing with the toys with the dad, and so he's got this sinking moment, and kind of that does. And we've gotten a lot of responses from dads who have had similar kind of situations, and it's fun. It's actually interesting. Jeff Harms, who did a great job playing Keith, he's a great actor. His dad was a professional videographer. And his dad had the camera in his face his whole life, and he hated it. He said, I was Zach. He's like, I hated it everywhere I was going. He was filming me, all this stuff. And he's like, so I got to play my dad.
That's really like, it's so funny when like life can kind of just work out like that.
Yeah.
And it just, it only adds to the authenticity, because again, I'll go back to saying like, it does feel very authentic in everything you're doing, from the horror to the family dynamics to all that stuff. And I've seen so many horror anthologies, and I feel like you have to pick a lane. Either you are the in your face crazy horror for 15 minutes because that's all you can accomplish, or you dive into these character dynamics and leave people maybe wanting a little more. But I feel like you guys hit right in the middle. Like, you give us everything that we need in
Thank
that
you.
grab bag of getting to the gore and stuff later, which I do obviously want to get to very quickly. I mean,
We're also the shortest segment in this installment too.
it doesn't feel like it. And again,
Oh, that's
that is a benefit, because it feels like we are living in that universe long enough where like it feels like we belong there. It feels like it actually exists. So like I'm taken aback just hearing that.
Yeah,
You're the
we're under
shortest
18
one.
minutes, which is crazy. Yeah.
I'm gonna go rewatch like VHS Halloween now, and with that knowledge, like actually like take stock of that. But
Yeah.
I want to get to your monsters. I want to get to everything, because
Sure.
it's so goddamn fun. It is a blast to see how you go from room to room and understand the architecture of a haunt.
Yeah.
And you're so varied in what you're doing, which is so much fun. Was there anything that didn't make it? Did you have grander
Yes.
ideas for more monsters? And
Yes.
We didn't have enough money and time.
We didn't have enough money. We wanted look, like, guys, like, if you saw what our production schedule was, this
5 days.
thing was impossible to film with the time and the money. It really was. So it's like, it's easy to watch this thing and be like, oh, it's good or bad or whatever. No, these things are impossible. And you cannot make a good VHS segment if you're a mediocre filmmaker. And I have nothing but respect for everyone who's done it. It's hell. But we wanted to do one that kind of slowed the pace down and have like a cat and mouse game in a room that was a corn maze. And so, like, whether it was like scarecrows grabbing kids or doing whatever, we wanted to have one that was more cat and mouse, and we couldn't fit it in the schedule.
Yeah, it was already hard enough to find real pumpkins. Didn't exist in July, so I don't know how hard it would have been to make a corn maze in July, but I feel like it would have been pretty tough.
Yeah.
But luckily I had some pumpkins in our garage that were unused, and that's the only way that we had that pumpkin carving scene.
We wanted to make it, it was very important to us that all these were the classic Americana haunt monsters made scary or dangerous, so we knew pretty quickly which ones we're going to pick. Like,
the first thing was like the Green Halloween Witch. Like, I knew immediately that was like my number one.
Yeah, but if you've ever gone to one of these old haunt mazes, and when I grew up in Florida, Central Florida, and they were everywhere because it was proximal to Universal and Disney or whatever, and I guess it's just a part of the DNA out there or outside of Orlando. And there was always an executioner and a torture chamber. There was always one. And like, those have kind of like not in haunts as much anymore, but when you were a kid, it was always a white sheet ghost, always executioner, always a green witch.
And we wanted to do ghouls instead of zombies.
Right.
Because that's like more classic. When you look at like old EC comics or like Bernie Wrightson's artwork from back in the day, they were ghouls. And I love that idea of doing like an actual monster that wasn't just like a zombie. Because that feels more modern.
You brought me back. Sorry. I'm gonna add that. You brought me back to Wildwood, New Jersey, and we had Dracula's Castle, which was literally like the dungeon segment, exactly, the executioner. And I was like, God, I haven't seen that in such a long time. Because you're right, like Universal Horror Nights, all that stuff. We're doing modern properties there, or Not Scary Farms. It's less of the medieval, but like that segment alone, I was like, oh man, I remember this. What?
Yeah.
I honestly feel like they're missing out. I feel like so many of these bigger parks are so far away from like anything that feels like nostalgic Halloween that when you go, it doesn't really feel like Halloween. It feels like a film franchise, which is great to have those elements because of the fans and the excitement. But I still feel like they need to think about the authenticity of the Halloween experience and like lean into that, because I really feel like it's a missed opportunity. And I think
Knott's does a good job.
They had nothing this year felt like Halloween to me. They got rid of all the really traditional Halloween mazes. I want them to bring back Trick or Treat. That is a thing that was like their best maze ever.
Had a green witch in it.
Had a green witch in it. It was awesome.
I'm gonna close my line of questioning now, and end it though with like, again, what you accomplish on the budget for as much varied horrors and stuff. It is extremely impressive. And I'm just wondering, between the both of you, like, what was the favorite thing that you pulled off? Like, what did you look at on the final run through or like the final viewing and go like, holy shit, like
the witch
we
ride.
Did
that was so
the
hard.
Witch ride.
That was like,
it,
it looks like when you're watching it, it doesn't look like it's as hard as it was, but Micheline, she's credited in the movie as Witcheline because she was on the broom in that scene. We had Elise Johnson was our witch performer elsewhere, but those are Micheline's hands there. We had to do. We should not have attempted that. It was on a rickshaw rig, which is like a 3-wheeler. We had 4 people on it.
Motorized.
Micheline was sitting on the front with the broom. DP was behind her, and Key Grip was behind him. And then our line producer was hanging onto the dummy on the side of the little girl on a skateboard with a blood pump. We had to hit, this whole thing is moving, and we have all these compound movements with the actors crossing the line and stuff. We had to hit 15 marks for that not to be horrible, and that includes Micheline
all in one take, guys.
Yeah, all in one take. Micheline grabbing the head at the right moment and pulling it off, not leaving it in frame long. You see it's a fake head. The blood pumping at just the right moment. The head actually moving. Her moving it into frame where you can see it, tossing it right. Like, she did an amazing job. They were all having the time of their life because they're all in this like 3-wheeler run around doing it. And I'm just by the monitor seeing none of it's working and that we should never have tried this. And I'm just like freaking out.
We did dry takes first. So like and then we had to problem solve stuff in those dry takes. Yeah. But as soon as we got a dry take that like everything lined up, it's like, okay, it's time to go wet. We had 2 wet takes and we landed both of them. Yeah. So I felt really proud of all of us when we did it. And the glitches and the things that are happening in that sequence those aren't cuts. Like that's just because the camera, she grabs it, it's getting fumbled and getting tossed around a lot. There's no cuts in that. It's all thing. And it's like the one thing that can make me kind of like hot when I hear it is people are like, oh, there's so much CG in this segment. We have no CG. We have no CG. All those ghosts are rod puppets. That is real practical stop motion. That's a real witch flying out. It's just some stuff is shot on a blue screen and other stuff was shot in the moment, really there. And I think that people are so used to CGI that they think that what we did is CGI, and it's not. It's all practical. Yeah, I never had that thought. It's actually really interesting to hear that people are commenting that because it's annoying. The ghosts, like literally the ghosts you're talking about, like the ghouls, they look like little puppets. I don't understand how you can. The ones that are flying around are little baby rod puppets, and the one that's like vomiting all the blood is a giant full-size practical ghost on set, actually hitting the actress with all that blood. Yeah, it is real, but I get it. There's a lot of CGI out there in the world, but I will say that VHS has a history of having a ton of practical effects. And yes, there is like blue screen removal and that sort of thing done, but that was all real. We did everything with puppets.
Before we talk about the pit, I want to ask one question unrelated to the short, because Donato, I think you covered that extremely well. Y'all had mentioned this is your 10-year anniversary coming up. Donato and I have a lot of conversations off mic about relationships. I married somebody who had seen maybe 2 horror movies before we got together, and I've been slowly introducing her to the genre. Donato, a lot of the people that he's dated over the years have been horror fans. So I'm always curious about that dynamic. What happens when you have that as like a core shared interest and that's kind of central to your relationship? What do y'all think?
I've had the experience that I feel most of my male friends have, where I've had a difficulty finding someone who doesn't try to sequester all of my interests into a room. And I've literally dumped someone the minute that they said that to me. Like, oh, if we ever live together, this all is going to go in like an office or room. And I'm like, and I broke up with them immediately. So I've had the very male experience of that. So this is my office, and I'm a big horror fan, and so is my husband. I mean, he loves genre film. And also I feel like I need to compliment him as well, as he's introduced me to so many new movies because of his incredible taste. And that was like something that really excited me when we first started dating. Yeah, the reason we kind of got together, our first interaction ever was discovering we had the same ringtone, which was the theme of Suspiria. So like we both had the same ringtone on our phones, and when we were first starting to talk, we realized that, and that was kind of a cute little horror romance moment. Yeah, it's one of our favorite movies. Yeah. And it was his only movie he had listed in his dating profile on OkCupid. So then I was totally the toxic male nerd where I messaged him and I'm like, oh, you must really like Goblin then, to test his like nerddom. Because I've had it happen to me so many times, but he totally knew who Goblin was, and then we just hit it off, and we've been together ever since. Mm-hmm. I
met my wife on OkCupid. Here's to wanting love, but being too cheap to pay for it. That was the right decision.
OkCupid was that really, awesome. It was that really good. That was like the peak of like online dating, because it had just enough of the shallow stuff, but also a lot of like the whole like personality, matching. And we found that was accurate for us. So it was like, they should bring the old one back. Like it was like perfect balance between like the old person eHarmony and like the, degenerate Tinder. It was like the middle ground.
Yeah. And now I'm getting messages from people. I swear to God, I got messaged by someone who didn't want to talk to me. And their message was like, I don't want to talk to you. I just want to understand why you like horror. And I gave
Oh.
like a paragraph response because I'm like, you're never gonna match with me after this anyway. You're gonna immediately delete me. So I gave an answer, and they were like, "Great, this is helpful. Thanks, bye." And then just unmatched me, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
That is so weird. That is so weird to me.
That's really weird.
I could never ever date or be married to someone who didn't have this similar interests. Like we have our own interests too that are separate. That is cool because we get to learn and discover things together. Because we are our own people, but our love of film and like all things horror and genre like really bring us together. And also, when you can marry someone who's literally your best friend, that's like the best advice I could give anybody. Is like a successful relationship and marriage is the foundation is friendship, and that is like the most important thing, because one day we're all going to be old as shit, and like all the other stuff's not going to matter if you can't hang out and spend time with this person and love every minute that you get to spend with them. Then you are doing it wrong.
I like that Certified Forgotten has taken a detour into becoming a dating podcast, but wonderful advice there. I hope people were listening. And you know what? That feels like a great segue to talk about today's film. We're going to go from one love story to a different, slightly more fucked up love story. So when we come back, we're going to talk about The Pit. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So today on the podcast, we are going to talk about The Pit. And I usually try and pre-write the plot synopsis. And I've sat and stared at my computer screen for a while, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to say about The Pit, and gave up. So I'm just going to quote IMDb because it's short and it's sweet and it'll get us into the conversation. A solitary and strange preteen boy wreaks revenge on his harassers when he makes a disturbing discovery in the depth of a forest. Technically accurate, not descriptive enough. Micheline and R.H, this was your pick. And from what I heard from Donato, it was not a particularly difficult pick. You guys had this one pretty quickly after we booked you. What made The Pit be the movie you wanted to talk about today?
Well, the Pit is the reason we killed so many kids in VHS Halloween. Like that's like the origin we saw this. This movie is like unhinged. It is that perfect Canadian horror film where it just feels like honestly like an alien made it. Like it's really hard.
Even though it's shot in America.
It's shot in America by an American director, but it was financed and produced by a Canadian film. It was shot in Wisconsin, and it also feels like a Wisconsin. I've never been to Wisconsin. I know very few people from Wisconsin. I feel like this was something that had to come from Wisconsin. Even knowing all that stuff, that I don't know anything about it, it just felt right, I guess. But
is Wisconsin a land of perverts?
I don't want to go that far. I don't know what they got in their holes in the ground there, or whatever they do. But
sorry to our Wisconsin listeners, that wasn't you. It was the other perverts.
But
I'm gonna get DM'd hate mail.
Yeah. Don't get us started on like Boston. But anyway, Wisconsin horror film The Pit and Canadian Wisconsin horror film The Pit. This is one of the most interesting horror films ever made because it has the single most despicable performance by a child.
I think it goes down as, in my opinion, the most unlikable like demon of a child ever to be in cinematic history. Like above Damien. Like I believe the kid in The Pit is actually worse.
And it has that perfect kind of thing where this kid, they're trying to set him up as being sympathetic because he's like constantly bullied, and then you like, no, he needs more. Like they need to bully him more. Like he's horrible. And it's just like one of those things where it's just like that misaligned kind of tonal contrast where they're trying to create a sympathetic kid. And I don't know.
They make a black comedy film.
Yeah, and it's like they obviously didn't know that this was like, they didn't know what they were making. Like it apparently the original like script, and I guess there's been a novelization I need to read where this guy, it was his like dark, coming of age masterpiece where he was telling this story, and then like the Canadians got involved and they didn't understand any of that, and they wanted to make it more kitschy and schlocky and adding nudity and adding all these kind of things that you do for a successful horror film. And because this guy wanted it to be a coming of age story, and because these people are like, no, it needs to be like this other thing that's just like the schlocky B-movie thing that we can make our money back on, those things did not collide well. And it just creates one of the most uncomfortable moving and watching experiences that I think you can have. And then on adding just the tonal kind of chaos of it, just all the different supernatural elements and all the different things were coming together. Like, why is this a movie about troglodytes that live in a pit as well as like a doll, a teddy bear that talks to this kid? Like, none of it even remotely tries to make sense or tries to find harmony in those two.
And there's no linear like time storytelling at all. Like it shows the same sequence more than once. I also feel like there's a little bit of Mac in me because of the old lady in the wheelchair. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? There's like a little nod. There's a Mac and me moment in there. And
it has a Mac and me tone in certain points too.
I love that movie. I still have it on VHS, puppy box.
But it's just like there's so many smaller things in there that are just wild and inappropriate. And that kid's performance, as if the character wasn't written badly enough, just every time he like leers at the camera. Like it's one of the great performances in film history because he's so despicable.
If that film did not kill that child actor's career, then I don't know what can.
Oh, and there's another funny thing. Apparently that kid, because where they shot it, I guess you were allowed to do it. Apparently when he wasn't on set, like just giving this all-timer horrible child performance, apparently he was going to discos and like dancing and stuff and like hanging out at like at adult clubs and all this stuff. And it's just like, I don't know. Like
was he playing himself?
Yeah, I was going to say, so he was playing himself essentially.
Yeah, he was playing himself. Like there's never been a better male gaze than in this movie. Like it's just pure, like just sinister, horrible sexual energy from this child who's asking like babysitters to bathe them and stuff. It's
we'll let them ask some questions too before we kind of get into all the craziness of the film.
I mean, I was going to say, like, for me, it feels like 3 different movies, like you said. The whole linear aspect aside, because the first scene in this film is replayed later for, I don't even know why it's the first film.
On Halloween night, which I also think is a perfect tie-in for VHS Halloween, is The Pit is also a Halloween movie.
And did the monsters come from the pit too? Who knows? We don't. Maybe your monsters came from a from a pit. No, it came from a song. We know that already. No, but like it's such a strange to see it first as the psychosexual, weird, juvenile thriller that doesn't.
He's 12, by the way, guys.
Right.
The character in this movie is 12. Let's just go ahead and establish that. He has a teddy bear that he takes everywhere with him as a 12-year-old, and it talks to him.
Yeah, Jamie, the 12-year-old pervert with an imaginary friend teddy bear. So, like, you get that weirdness. Then it becomes pure slapstick comedy. Like you're saying, it is a dark comedy at a certain point with Gremlins-esque fucking the whole wheelchair scene to me is like the old woman on the staircase getting thrown out in a way. Like it's just so goofy. And then it becomes an outright like creature feature. And you're like, how did we get from A to B to C to like D, E, and F are still thrown in? It's so bizarre.
This movie should not exist, yet it does. And I think talking about the perversion part of it, I think beyond the film itself, the other thing that I found most unsettling is the main nude scene, which is the skin dipping scene, is the director's daughter. That is the director's daughter. And that is my lore to drop on everyone.
And the weird part about it was, and this makes that part so much weirder, the wife of the director wouldn't let him shoot nude scenes with any women. She said the only one you're allowed to do a nude scene with is our daughter. So that is, it's just, and that's true. That's 100% true. That actually
they all
happened.
need to be on a list somewhere. If they're not, I'm going to advocate for that right now. And so I thought that was like one of the most unsettling parts in this. And the kid's a pervert for anybody that hasn't seen it. Like he literally makes like serial killer pervert art and like shows it to his psychologist babysitter who's studying psychology. He tries to look up her skirt, like full on, like under the table shot. His dad catches him, reprimands him, and that does not stop him. The other scene that's completely unhinged, there's a little girl that bullies him on a bicycle. And she's the niece of the librarian. He does a full like scream moment where he's trying to hide his voice and call the librarian outside of her house and convince her to show him her titties to release her niece. And like the most complex setup of events for a 12-year-old to be a pervert I've ever seen in cinema history. And I have so many questions.
Dude, he was an avant-garde pervert. He was like the Orson Welles of child perverts. Like he was like just the whole the most unsettling part to me where he's like 12 years old and asking the babysitter to bathe him and just the energy with which he asks her.
And he mentions that his mother bathes him all the time.
I think that's the most surprising part for me is like the way the plot tries to again, sympathy you said before, like they're trying to create sympathy for this bullied child, but then again, like the way that he's going about this whole perversion and the way the adults just roll with it, like the psychologist babysitter waking up and being like, why are you watching me sleep? And him just being like, oh, like la-di-da, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
her still going with that and being like, oh, okay, I guess he's just a little off. Like those are the moments where I'm really kind of just like, what is this movie trying to do in like normalizing his behavior in a weird way? Because none of the adults want to do anything about it.
Well, Donato, my favorite scene in the entire movie, and all the weird shit that you guys have described, absolutely true. The thing that is going to haunt my dreams is when she drops the knife earlier in the film, and he goes, "Oh, I'll get it," and she's like, "Oh, women can do stuff now," and I was like, "Great, feminism won, I guess, as evidenced by the pit."
I think that's actually the message of the movie. You know that feminism won, but Jamie, like I do have to give his, because it's a pure combination of bad editing or good editing, bad directing or good directing, and bad or good performance. All those go to this leering, this like every time that kid hangs on the camera, it spikes you in your soul in a way that you could not try to do that if you wanted to make a sexual deviant character and put him on screen and try to get that tone. You could never do it. It just had to be this perfect, a composite of all these different elements that brought his deviancy to life. And I have incredible respect for that.
And it's just like, how does Michael Powell get his career ruined for Peeping Tom? Yet, like,
I don't think this guy's career took off.
I'm just saying the pit did not have. I don't think I heard any like big, outcry of like, this is inappropriate when that movie came out. I remember seeing it for the first time, and I'm just legitimately was like, what the fuck is this? And I think that that's the perfect description of this film. It's a Halloween movie about a 12-year-old pervert who talks to a teddy bear, and there's flesh-eating trolls.
I like those troglodytes too.
They're cool.
That's actually,
it's very creep show adjacent.
Yeah, that's very creep show. But there's a pit full of these things, and I don't remember. I don't. The funny thing about it is the teddy bear didn't tell him where these things were.
The teddy bear was the least unsettling part of the film.
Yeah, and it's like
least bizarre.
You think at least the teddy bear would be like introducing him to the otherworldly aspect aside from the teddy bear, but it doesn't. It just says, "Oh, be a pervert and throw people into the pit." Like that's all it does.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jamie needed that. I think Jamie would have done that regardless. But like, I'm a big fan of the troglodytes. I liked when they got out and wreaked havoc and were eating people and stuff. And it's just crazy.
Well, I think that unsettling nature too, talking about Jamie's leering is it's so good because it made me think back to other great is obviously the wrong word to use there, but like other great cinematic perverts in horror history, but like going back to Maniac, and I think about the Maniac remake specifically and what Elijah Wood does with that performance and just the glimpses we get because it's from his point of view the whole time, but when he's looking in a mirror or something, it is so childlike. And I think that is the ultimate, like, why is it so creepy? Because again, this is a 12-year-old using his immaturity to his advantage because he quotes it frequently like, I'm just a 12-year-old. What do you mean? You don't have to worry about me.
Yeah.
And the fact that it works, it goes back to my comment before, the idea of like, well, why are these adults just rolling with it? They are, because they are looking at a child and they still can't see the evil in it. They still see this like weird little nature of like, well, he's just kids being kids kind of stuff. And like, that is where it truly gets creepy for me, that we're just letting it go. And like, I was almost waiting it for be like an orphan reveal where he is way older than he's letting on.
Right.
Because he kind of feels that way.
And that would actually be a great payoff. Like if he was adopted and like he was much older, and then it adds another layer to his character. But I also am just curious, like the guy that wrote this, was he just like watching Little Shop of Horrors and is like, you know what? I'm going to do that, but make it a pervert. Because you think about it, there's a big connection between Little Shop of Horrors and the pit, like with the feeding the people and everything, and him just willing to sacrifice anything to these monsters, and him getting the meat and like starting all these different levels, like it follows the storyline of Little Shop.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about this that reminds me is we really need culturally to reclaim the concept of a pervert. because now we have all these different words for it. But when you used to hear pervert, it meant something was on the loose. Like it was like there's a pervert out there, and it like
It was
had
a
this
negative.
like
It was a negative.
yeah, but it had this like power to it, and like and Jamie is a power pervert. Like Jamie is on the loose. He's a pervert. And when we grow up in the 80s or 90s or whatever, if people on the news were talking about a pervert, you knew to lock the doors. You knew to close the windows. And we've lost that. Like we have all these other different words for it, and we've kind of like watered it down. But like like the pit is a testament to the power of like perversion. And I think the best part of the movie is that he dies at the end. Like I think you need him to die, and this other girl, and I hate to know what she's like. Maybe she's even worse than Jamie in some way. I could use a sequel to this movie
with just the little girl and Teddy.
Together.
Well, I had a chance today. I was chatting a little bit with Brian Collins, a horror film critic online. This is one of his favorite movies. He recommends it to everybody. And he shared with me a piece, which was really helpful, that I would recommend anybody listening to this podcast go check out. He did a breakdown of the book versus the movie for Fangoria a few years back.
Oh, awesome!
And he talks about what's expanded in the film. So the police officer is a bigger character in the book than is in the movie. But some of the stuff that you guys have already referenced, that Teddy's supposed to be 8 or 9 as opposed to the 12-year-old, which is way too close to puberty. Like it's uncomfortable. But it also, to hear Brian describe it too, it sounds a lot more like sort of a Dexter-esque origin story, where like Teddy is the dark passenger that's talking to him, and there's this instinct that's coming. In the book, apparently, or in the original version of the screenplay, everything was in his head. There wasn't actually any monsters in the pit. So it feels like, I mean, we talked earlier a little bit about going back and recapturing stories and bringing them to new audiences. It does feel like there's a lot of, as weird and fucked up at times as this movie is, there's a lot of pieces and components here that would make it a really interesting, campy, we need to talk about Kevin kind of thing if somebody wanted to go there.
I think the difference is like the perversion aspect of it. Like if it was just the like harming and like the death and like the morbidity of that, I think that would make the pit more digestible because it's like something we've seen before and something we process. But I think the thing that makes it so unsettling is that he is a pervert. And I think that especially as a child, like it's like, what is going on? And like you mentioned, the adults are just rolling with it. At no point is someone just be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like
the little girl takes care of the situation though.
She does. Feminism wins.
Yeah, guys. That's the moral of the story. It's like, but it's interesting. And actually, now that you mention it, the whole movie makes more sense if it's all in his head, because then all the disparate elements would just be psychosis and just some kind of like, mindfuck thing. Because if you make it all literally, which is what it does, this is a very literal movie about a doll or a teddy bear that talks to a kid. Like that's actually, you can tell that's actually happening. And it
even leans into like Teddy's real. And like he's actually talking and this real entity. Like it doesn't, it definitely gives the audience an ability to think like that it's not make-believe at times. So I think that's kind of strange and interesting. But yeah, like I'm interested to see if more people are going to watch The Pit and then go on Rotten Tomatoes and do some reviews. So have you guys experienced that with your podcast? Like after you feature something, have you gone back and seen if that's changed the like review score of people going in and covering something? Because it kind of unearths and it helps people discover things they may have not watched before.
So not critical. So like critics won't go back and do it, but we absolutely have seen like we were actually talking about this year alone at some festivals, movies we've covered prior. Like I'm not saying it's our doing, but those movies we're covering are starting to have these like festival renaissance where like, oh shit, like Before the Fall, it's the 10th year anniversary. Like let's do a screening of that. And everyone's like, what the fuck is Before the Fall? And a bunch of people are like, oh, well, if you go back to this podcast episode or something like that, like it's the awareness of it. And I think that's what we're always striving to do here too. It's the idea of, the critics let it go at the time. And I can say as a film critic right now, the idea of going back and reviewing something old is just so foreign because there's so many movies coming out new that we're drowning on that. So it's like,
for sure.
I don't think the critic side,
restoration, and
right, exactly.
Get people to review it. I mean, we're just doing a disservice to the film industry and community by telling them about this movie. I mean,
I don't think so. I love this movie. I think that's our divide here. I actually think this movie's brilliant. I think
it's the most unsettling thing I've ever watched. And I watch like Harmony Korine movies, and one of my favorite movies is Gummo, and I find The Pit to be so much more disturbing.
But I mean, like again, like that's the good part though. I think when we're talking about horror, it's
Yeah.
like finding the quality in it for sure. But like there are movies that I find so unsettling. And I think, a really easy example is Paranormal Activity. I know it's popular, but I find that movie deeply unsettling because I have a deep fear of the unknown and I can't explain away that movie, where other people think it's absolute unwatchable garbage shot on home video. And why would you be scared of it? And it's like, I can't tell you why, or sorry, I can tell you why, you just won't understand it. And like
Totally.
forever, it's just going to be one of my like, it just hits me in a certain way.
So we end the podcast typically with the question of how does the movie become rediscovered? I'm hearing from Micheline, it shouldn't. I'm hearing from RH, it should. So we've got a little bit of a divide over there. But I know that this is available. There is a DVD release on Kino Lorber. They have a commentary track with the director as well as the star. So if you want to find out what kind of an adult he turned into, you get the
We gotta
opportunity
go
to
watch
do
that
that.
now.
So let me phrase this question in a slightly different way then. There's a lot of horror, especially in the 70s and 80s, that people will watch just because it's ridiculous or silly or over the top. What are some things that true horror fans, filmmakers, people that want to learn from movies, what can you take from this? Child performances, practical effects, like what's something that people should see this and not just laugh at it, but be like, oh, that was cool.
Honestly, the boldness, just proceeding boldly into the night and just making something that is just wild. Because weirdly enough, horror is becoming where, you have to bring out the freaks to the theater. And it's like, it's not enough just to do some down the middle of the road thing and just count on like the bored 16, 17-year-old girls to come out in the theater because they don't have anything to do anymore. They're on their phones on TikTok. So you really have to bring the horror crowd out, and you have to get them really invested in something wild they haven't seen anymore. And that's why the best horror movies are performing are original right now. And I feel like if you did a different version of this, a more artful version of this kind of thing where it's just batshit all the way through, that really breaks through the noise right now.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean, I could see the guy that made Weapons doing something like The Pit and making it like brilliant, but like making different choices. And like, because of his comedy background, like he would make something really bombastic and like just crazy in the best way. Like he's definitely one of my favorite like new directors that's doing stuff right now, because I always am excited and he shows me something I haven't seen before. But yeah, for me, I'm always down for a monster. That's it for me. I think it's a cool design. I think I wish we could see them more. Like it's neat. And I that kid is a total serial killer. So, I think it's interesting if you like true crime or serial killer stuff, then go check out The Pit and see what a childlike version of a serial killer could look like, because that is definitely a reflection of what I think one is when you look at textbooks, like issues and problems and things that are clear signs of someone being a psychopath. Like it's interesting to see a child psychopath.
Well, I heard someone describe it as a mix between grindhouse horror and like an after school special. And it kind of felt like that in certain parts. Like there's a really strong after school special element to it, especially with like the bullying and the kind of like almost like some of the stuff he's doing with like the women in the movies. Like you would like cut to something saying, "This is what you don't do," in like an after school special. And it has that same kind of like overacting, kind of weirdly.
He would have been bullied so much more if they knew how fucked up that kid was.
Yeah, rightfully bullied. And I think for, I'm watching this movie, and number one, like, I just love the idea that like any kind of international horror, and I know Canada it's international for us as Americans, so I'm still putting it in the same camp. Like I was thinking of the movie Pin the whole time, and just how fucking crazy these Canadian productions were getting in the 80s, and what they were, like you just said, a testament to what they could get away with and what they could do. And I agree 100%. I want to see more weird shit like this. Like I champion Demon Wind all the fucking time on this podcast.
I love
the box art of Demon Wind.
Again, I know I'm on an island of loving Demon Wind. So
you know what? I loved Mac and Me before anybody gave a shit about that movie, and I was always telling people about it. I was like, "Did you know McDonald's helped pay for this movie?" And there's an entire musical dance sequence. And I love McDonald's. I love a crispy Coke and their French fries. And that movie's unhinged, so I love it. The little weird single like whistling butthole mouths, like just the worst creature design I've ever seen in my life, and I love it so much. Sometimes,
but yeah, I mean,
the camp of it is what makes it great.
And again, I think that's what really drew me into The Pit. And again, whether it's a good movie, whatever you want to argue in that level, it's still something that I'm just watching with my mouth just open. Just like, what
Because they
the?
just keep doing shit, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like I
so,
watched it on Tubi too, which like felt very natural.
oh,
This
that's
feels
great.
like
Yeah, it
something.
belongs into it.
It belongs to
Monocle,
TV.
are you on more Michelin side where this thing should be thrown in a pit and
Itself?
torn apart by the troglodytes, or what do you think?
So this isn't my cup of tea. However, here's what I'll say. As my final word on this. If I suddenly found myself with Elon Musk money after I did like a million different things to make the world a better place, I find myself obsessed with the notion of a fake true crime series based on the events of this small town. So like
Okay.
a sequel true crime series where like 50 years later, a podcaster's like, what happened with this family in the Sleepy? Like it's such a weird, when people were going missing and they were just like, they're probably just gone. I was like, man, each one of those disappearances would be an 8-part Netflix series today. I feel like you could have fun with it and make kind of like a meta format. So that's what I would do with part of my Elon Musk billions.
Like a
But-
meta movie about how the pit was real and how all those people
Correct.
kept throwing in. You're like refining it, and it leads you back to the.
That's gonna be your Shelby Oaks. You know, it's
Correct.
Gonna be...
That is what I'm going to do. Yeah, and it'll be watched by dozens. We'll probably cover it on the podcast at some point. Well, that is it for us on Certified Forgotten. Micheline, R.H, thank you guys so much for joining us. I know you're still deep in promoting. It's not even Halloween yet, so VHS Halloween has just begun to strike. But are there places folks can go so that when you're doing interviews, when you're doing press, if you're sharing behind the scenes stuff, where do they connect with you online to see all that good stuff?
I'd say Instagram is where we're showing a lot of like behind the scenes videos and photos. I've been trying to do stuff like every day, something different. And I'm going to be featuring our ghoul makeups and that whole process. And we try to talk about people from our crew and highlight all the incredible talent and people we got to work with. Because it's not just us as singular filmmakers that make this great. It is an incredible team of people that we get to collaborate with. Mm-hmm. So that's our Instagram's a great place. Shudder's got some behind the scenes stuff on their Instagram as well. That'd be the best place to see and discover like things about our segment that you might not get to know about otherwise.
I love that. What's the handle?
Micheline Pitt, and yours is just your name.
Just RH.Norman. I'm less active on social media.
I
like a lot more fun.
Invite him to my posts and like, because I'm definitely the more like front facing. Hi, I'm on the internet.
I'm just watching the pit every day, so I don't really like it.
That is a cry for help, Micheline, in case you didn't know that. You might want to talk to R.H about that.
Guys, I'm going to go burn that copy later today.
Good enough. Donato, where do folks stay connected with you online?
As always, you can follow me at Donatobomb, DONATOBOMB, and that's going to be Blue Sky, Letterboxd, and Instagram most prominently. I will be heading to the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival with Mr. Monocle in a few days, so we're going to have reviews for the fest coming out there, and then it's just back to the normal review work, which is never ending because that is our current climate of the industry.
It's amazing. It's a great climate to be in. Lots of cool, awesome movies are getting made.
I've got work all the time, so I can't complain.
Well, it's great talking with you guys. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show. And if you haven't, everybody, VHS Halloween now streaming on Shudder. Go get some. Donato, take us out, please.
What the